It's a song about being a Gryffindor.
And all the shades of red.
Well, it is. We had maroon and gold in the last episode.
All the shade of redheads.
All right.
We have brick,
Shade of
burgundy, scarlet, and then...
You are listening to AP Taylor Swift, the podcast for Swifties who are all about the lyrics. We're your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Muncie.
And I'm Jody.
And we are your unofficial professors of Taylor Swift.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of AP Taylor Swift. Today, we are doing a deep dive episode, and the song that we are going to go deep into is Maroon. This episode is a continuation of our discussion last week, which was around color, and more specifically, we really got into a lot of the different shades of red. Maroon, of course, has a ton of those shades of red, and so if you want to hear that part, to just hear the teaser and the setup, definitely go back and listen to that episode. But today, I'm excited to dive into the song and figure out what the heck it means. But before we do that, kick it over to Jen. Take us through how we do deep dives.
Yes, which I think this might actually be particularly relevant for this song. So we always take advantage of the concept of a rhetorical triangle where you need three pieces for effective communication. Who is speaking? Who are they speaking to? And what is the purpose of what they're saying? Get a little complicated of like, who are the speakers within the song and what are they saying to each other? Or is Taylor Swift the speaker? So we bounce around between that. I realize I haven't said that in a while. So it's just a framework to help us kind of root ourselves into something or ground ourselves when things get a little complicated, and the song might get a little complicated. So we may have moments where we pause and we say, okay, who's talking here? Or like, what's going on with this? So that is how we do that. So yes, so Maroon, just as a quick reminder, does come from the album Midnights, released in 2022, written by Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff, and it's track 2.
This is an epic one.
Yeah.
We're going to just go line by line. When the morning came, we were cleaning incense off your vinyl shelf because we lost track of time again. Laughing with my feet in your lap like you were my closest friend.
Okay, I just realized that we didn't say this in the last episode, but when the morning came feels like a continuation of daylight.
Oh, yeah, daylight. Oh,
Hey.
yeah. Hey.
Love was golden, but...
Daylight. And here in the morning on an album called Midnights.
So we go from, we didn't bring this up in the color theory, but also just placing this in the broader collection of work is it came after Lavender Haze, which is another color, which is kind of interesting.
On the album Midnights, and
Which
we're
is
talking about
also-
when the morning came.
Yeah.
So...
It's a lot of color.
Okay, so we're
So, yes.
cleaning incense off vinyl shelves.
Well, she's really painting a picture here, speaking of color. Like, she's really giving us the setting and the scene for what's happening here.
Actually, you brought up a little bit the screwtop rosé in the last episode, and to me, the beginning of this song has always really set it into this almost like early 20s phase of life. Like, that's what all of that has done for me. Going through this, cleaning incense off your vinyl shelf. Okay, that feels kind of an early 20s thing. Your roommate, so you have a roommate, not something like you can do. It's like good, people like having roommates, but when you say roommate, there's a phase of life where like that's a very, very common thing. And then cheap-ass screw-top rosé, so also a phase of life where you tend to buy really cheap rosé, which is a very like fresh to drinking. You have a younger palate that can handle the sweetness of a rosé. So to me, all of this is painting a very visual image, but also a stage of life image.
I love that you said that, though, because in the last episode, we did spend some time talking about the actual chorus and how it feels very mature. The color maroon and burgundy and this kind of older, deeper colors and their deeper versions of red. So I think there might be something here about navigating time, because there is a part of the song that feels really young, and then there's a part of the song that feels really mature.
Well, the other thing I think that takes us back to youth is also the implication that they accidentally stayed up all night. And first of all, I didn't do that in my youth, to be clear. But second of all, in no world is that happening in my 30s for anyone I know.
Yeah, definitely not. I still like cheap-ass screw-top rosé, though.
Yeah, but it's like, I think it's like every piece together to me is like creates that
it paints
moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Youths,
freedom.
youths.
But I also want to stress the boho vibes that we had earlier. I'm of Indian origin and generally get incensed when people bring up incense as an appropriation of my culture. But in this instance, I feel like
the way you said that was so good.
It was perfect. No notes.
face as you were kind of going through it, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it this way.
But the way that she's used that here, she's painting this picture of carefree, don't need a 9-to-5 job. Morning, we're cleaning incense dust off of the vinyl shelf. We've lost track of time, feet in your lap. And it feels like this kind of bohemian vibes, right?
Carefree.
Yeah, you imagine like a beaded
Carefree.
curtain in the doorway. Like that's
It
what you
fits
start
with the
thinking of.
whole aesthetic
Yeah.
of the Midnight's album, the 70s boho
Right.
chic, but you're not in the
And
70s, you're in the 2020s and you're
And with that, I would argue that, yeah, you could be in your early 20s, but also you could also be older if you're living that kind of a life. I think it's also
Right.
just a
the
lifestyle.
Big Lebowski. I'm getting Big Lebowski vibes, and he was not in his 20s.
I think that to me it does, and some of this is me, it's not even projecting, but just it was my first impression, so it's just how I
Yeah.
continue to see it. Later on, jumping ahead very far, we get I chose you, we have that, and then later on we have and I lost you, so we know that this has to be
This is a story.
retrospective
Yes.
in
Yeah.
some way, because we get the choosing and the losing. And so to me, this is like, let's set the stage. This was my past, and then let's go
Yeah.
through what happened.
But it's in present tense. I see you every day now, and I choose you. So, like, it is retrospective, but we're kind of going through it.
Well,
in
it
the
starts
moment.
in past tense. I think the
Yeah.
point is that
Yes.
early on it starts at potentially a different, which I think is a worthy thread to pull on because again, we talked about the chorus is feeling a lot more mature. So maybe
Yeah.
let's keep going. One thing that is interesting in the first stanza though also is laughing with my feet in your lap like you were my closest
I was going to
friend.
bring that up as well.
If you're not
Like
actually
you're
the closest friend.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it goes like at the end of it, it says, and I see you every day now, and I choose you. So, like, maybe you didn't choose this person before that moment. So, this was all like you were my closest friend before we became more than closest friends.
I don't think this is what the song is, but just to play devil's advocate, like other relationships could be like, what if you were hanging out with your mom and it's like you're my closest friend? Like, what I immediately think of is, what if it's somebody else or like your lover or somebody that is not actually your closest friend, but the way that they put the feet in your lap is almost as if you were my closest friend, right? Like that's kind of what I think of with that lyric. It's like you're really my sister, but the way that you put your feet in my lap, it makes me feel like you were my closest friend. I don't know.
I am again going to jump ahead in the song. Apparently, that's just how I'm interpreting the song so far. It also then makes me think of the line that we get later on, carnations you had thought were roses, where there's a lot of like, it looks like one thing, but maybe it's actually another.
Yeah.
It does kind of come up. Perhaps this could be the first moment of that. It felt like we were closest friends, but now in retrospect, I see things differently.
Yeah.
And seeing things differently, I think, is an important thread
Yeah.
as well. Like, looked up at the sky and it
Right.
we're skipping ahead, but let's
Yes,
put a pin
put
in
a
the
pin in
seeing
it.
things
Yeah.
differently.
Seeing things differently, timeline. Those are the two threads we're going through.
Great. Yeah. So how did we end up on the floor anyway? You say, so I think this one is actually, it's important to go over those lines, the screw top rosé line, because your roommate's cheap ass screw top rosé. So they are not roommates. The two characters in
Yeah.
the song are not roommates. One person is very confused. Speaker is confused, like, how the heck do we end up on the floor? And then the other person answers, it's the rosé. And then we say, that's how I see you every day now.
So I have it in so that
Yeah,
it's
but separately.
yeah. How do we end up on the floor anyway?
Oh,
You
that's
say your roommate's cheap ass screw top rosé. That's how. That's
Right,
how we
right,
ended
yeah.
up on the floor. Was we got drunk on cheap wine, basically.
And then I see you every day now.
Which would tell you that maybe they're not early 20s, because I don't think you get that hungover and drunk on cheap wine unless it was a lot of it.
Yeah, I think it's just like how they lost track of time, stayed up all night, and
I
they
know,
ended
I'm
up
just
on
making
the
a-
floor.
You're
No,
like, I get drunk now.
no. I think that like
No, but I
getting
get drunk easier now.
Right.
that's for sure. True.
That's what it is. That's what I'm saying.
My understanding is they drank a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that the ending up on the floor isn't necessarily like passed out or anything,
No,
but
just like we're sitting on the floor.
we got drunk and just
We're on the
you
floor.
do weird stuff when
you're drunk.
drink. Yeah.
Okay. So they're drunk.
But then we move into present tense. I see you every day now.
Yes.
And I chose you.
Chose you.
The one I was dancing with in New York, no shoes.
Looked up in the sky and it was. So this is where, well, okay, we've got New York.
Yeah, New York is one of those, if you listen to the last episode, what I would call indirect references where it's not actually a color. New York is not a color, but New York is the Big Apple and apples are red. And in that sense, there could
More
be a
red.
connection of red.
Yeah.
Also, okay, can we talk about no shoes? Dancing with in New York with no shoes. So
Right.
you know how some people have a nightmare that they're naked in public? My nightmare is being barefoot in public, particularly because I live in New York, and the idea of walking barefoot in New York City is disgusting and revolting to me. Like
Oh,
I
do you
wipe
think it's like on the sidewalks? I just
No,
imagined
not
it was like in our
necessarily.
apartment. Okay.
Not necessarily, but like when I actually read it in Dancing with New York No Shoes, I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
god, don't do that. That's such a bad idea."
Dancing down Fifth Avenue, isn't that a
Oh,
thing that she does?
I think to me too, that's even again, that's some more intimacy. Like if you're
yes.
dancing with someone with no shoes, you're thinking
You're at
living
home.
room, we have music playing on the TV or on the phone or on a record player if we want to be even more, retro about it.
I always thought it was like they're at a party and their feet hurt and they were dancing, so they took their shoes off. And like
Yeah.
again, going
Oh
off the vibes of being drunk and young
Yeah.
and carefree, especially if you're looking up at the sky, like maybe you're on a rooftop in New York dancing
yeah.
and
Yeah.
your feet hurt and you're just like having a good time.
I also, as someone who maybe inspired the boho people, go barefoot all the time, and I'm not afraid of being barefoot in New York, as nasty as that is, Jody. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure
Oh
I've
god.
left my brother's apartment and walked out barefoot in New York.
Are you up to date on your tetanus shots?
Your tetanus shot.
Yes, I am actually. I do believe in vaccinations.
Important PSA.
So that you can be barefoot in New York. 10 Spice 2, I just want to throw out that I see you every day now is really interesting to me. I have no answer, but I want to throw out the fact that it's in New York, that it's a retrospect on a relationship, and we have this past and present. It does have maybe some connections to Holy Ground, is what my mind is thinking.
The song is called Maroon. How could it not have connections to the album Red? Like it has
Yeah.
to.
But like we talked about that when we did Holy Ground of like, oh, I see you in every crowd or that
Yeah.
line. And so I see you every day now. Are they seeing you the person or is there like the memories or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe isn't that, but it has some of those connections that
Yeah.
we can explore as we continue.
There's also something about the I chose you. She emphasizes that in the song. And this idea that they were just dancing, maybe they were in a group, maybe there were a bunch of people, maybe it was just one-on-one, but she chose that
This
person
person.
after they were dancing.
Yeah, there was agency.
Yeah.
She didn't
Yeah.
fall into it.
Yeah,
It was an active
deliberate.
choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get into the confusion with all the different shades of red.
Red.
In New York, no shoes, looked up at the sky and it was burgundy.
It's the sky that she's talking about.
Has anyone ever seen
Yes.
burgundy skies?
That's
Sunsets.
red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning.
No, red skies, yes. Burgundy?
Maybe it's a storm.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be the sky. It could be the ceiling. It could be,
Wait, in New York, when you do have like kind of a reddish sunset, the reflections on the buildings.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, also, hello, red sky. Last summer, the wildfires in Canada that
yeah.
came down, everything was red.
But that was orange.
And here it was pretty red. It was insane.
Oh, really? We had it here too a few years ago, but it was very Blade Runner like.
It was
Like I would
creepy.
call it rust. She uses the word rust later. I think this is the nuance, is that she's using these shades of red, but they don't always totally make sense. So the burgundy also blends into on my t-shirt when
Yes.
you splash your wine onto me. So it's not just talking about the sky, but I think the sky is worth calling out because it comes up again and again also, because she also says the sky was maroon. I've also never seen a maroon sky. And so I think there's this play on words with which shade of red is it?
It can be all of the above, but I also feel like too as we go into the chorus, a big thing with the chorus, which I'll just read it really quickly as we're discussing it. The burgundy on my t-shirt when you splashed your wine into me, and how the blood rushed into my cheeks, so scarlet it was. The mark you saw on my collarbone, the rust that grew between telephones, the lips I used to call home, so scarlet it was maroon. And the sense I get from this when we're reading it in this context is it's almost this like immersion in shades of red. And I wonder if there's something looked up at the sky and it's just everything is red. We talked about The Wizard of Oz and Wicked a little bit in the last episode. And in the original book of The Wizard of Oz, the Emerald City isn't emerald. The wizard makes everyone wear emerald colored glasses, so everything looks emerald. And I'm kind of getting that sense here, where is everything actually red? I don't know, but
Yeah.
those, you think rose colored lenses, that these
Yeah.
are maybe like maroon colored lenses in some ways.
Maybe it isn't modifying the sky at all. Maybe it
It's
is
not,
just a
yeah.
broader, like, how everything is in her life. I looked up at the sky and
It
it
was.
it
I
was
think
like
maroon is
everything.
what's supposed to be there, but it's not said here. But
But the sky isn't maroon, just like this whole experience, everything she just discussed, this
yeah,
relationship that she is falling into is then all of these experiences, the burgundy on my t-shirt, how
yes.
the blood rushed into my cheeks, the mark on my collarbone, the telephones, the lips, like the love, the relationship, whatever is going on between them, that's what's maroon, which again directly relates back to red.
She does later have the line, "This looked up at the sky and it was maroon,"
Yes,
but
yeah.
it's in a different
Different
context.
context,
So it's
yeah.
I
Right.
think like it's the sky and it was like, oh, I'm realizing what it was. Oh, now let me fall back into the memories, and then we
Right.
get kind of full circle later.
I think the fact that she figures out all these different shades of red is a choice. We talked about that on the last episode. My question is that are these things really the color that she says they are, or is she's being oddly specific and getting very precise with the shade of red, but then she's also saying everything was maroon. This idea that something was so scarlet that it was maroon makes no sense if you think about it literally. So what is she trying to say with that? Is it that the subtleties of the different shades of red actually didn't matter because it was actually all this one color? Or is it that she thought it was something and it was something else? Because when I say looked up at the sky and it was maroon, or it was all this one color, like I've never seen a sky that's maroon. And maybe that's the point. It's that skies are a different color. Maybe the blood that rushed into her cheeks is so scarlet because that's blood is the color of like I don't know, is blood even really scarlet? Because we have
Depends
later
if it's oxidized or not.
right.
We're a science podcast now.
But
Sorry.
also like in your cheeks you think of more of like a pinkish glow. Burgundy and wine makes sense. But yeah, I'm just like trying to
I think that for
think about
me,
that.
these again, she's literally painting a
Yeah.
picture, and I paint and I take a watercolor class, and like there's 1,000 different shades of reds and
Yes.
watercolors alone that you can get, and they each take on a different significance, but they
Yeah.
also create a different experience.
Right.
And what she's using these colors to illustrate the experiences of this relationship. I don't know yet. We'll keep going on this through
Yeah.
the song to see. I think for
What
me,
that means.
what that means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't disagree with you. I think it's very deliberate that she's choosing and calling out all of these different shades. I think what I'm trying to figure out is why. And when you say that something is so scarlet that it's maroon, or you say that the sky is a maroon color, it just makes you it makes me go like, that's interesting. Like that's not the color of that's not the version of red I would have thought to describe that.
In high school, in 8th grade, we talked about this. My school was weird. We studied epistemology, which is like the theory of knowledge, right? It literally is just like the investigation of like what distinguishes a justified belief from opinion. And color is subjective. To me,
Yeah.
my shirt is maroon, but you all might see a different color and
Right.
still call it maroon. We have all agreed to
Because we've been
call it
told that
because
this
we have
color
been
equals
told
Yeah.
maroon.
that this color equals maroon. So there's this subjectivity
Hmm.
that we are all calling the same thing by a certain name,
Yeah.
but I don't truly know what you
What
are
maroon is.
seeing or what you are experiencing. And
Yeah.
so the lyrics of this song, she is calling out all of these very specific colors for these specific things, but that is her experience. I don't know that I see the same color that she sees that she's
Yeah, but
calling out, but it's
if we label it the same way, like you would still need to know that that
right.
color in the sky,
But
which
you
gives
might be experiencing something different, which might be
sh-
something we then explore further in the song. Like we might be
right,
labeling something the same, but maybe the experiences that we're having
right.
of this thing is different. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we used to do in eighth grade science class.
It's like maybe she is colorblind and her sky is burgundy. Maroon.
I'm doubling down on that theory. The only other thing I want to throw out as a possibility, bringing up, I thought about the art thing a lot with this because it is very artistic. You start seeing these colors. But another thing that is interesting is if you go to a museum and you see art, those colors change over time. Like that's how the physical art works. And scarlet is a very vibrant color. Maroon is less vibrant. So I also think there's a potential interpretation of, oh, I painted this scarlet, but now time has aged and I look back on it and it's less vibrant than when I thought I was painting it or whatever it may be, because time has changed the colors, because that's what happens to colors on art.
Well, there was a great study of Van Gogh's paintings where they were able to do like MRIs and X-rays and whatnot to see that I think it was Van Gogh's irises where the background looks like a yellow shade.
Mhm,
It was actually a beautiful pink, but
mhm.
the pigments he used were organic. So they have faded over the decades, over the years. So it is not the painting that he painted because the color was organic and it changed.
Yeah, which is really interesting when you think about other paintings he made, like Starry Night and
Yes.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And I think really I really think the time is so important in this song, because I also think that is a rather apt comparison to the how vibrant things feel when you're living your life, and then when you look back on those memories, like we know human memory is fallible, like it is not perfect, and so this idea of colors changing over time like does represent, like I had a high school sweetheart and I really did love him and we had really sweet memories, but then we broke up, and I can now, many years later, I see some of the sweetness, but they're very faded memories. They're
Mhm.
not as vibrant as I'm sure they were in that moment. Even like been 11 years since my wedding, and I those memories are already kind of like faded because it's just been a long time and you remember it different. And the idea of like, oh, a color has changed over time, I feel like does capture the fluidity of that.
So let's keep going with this
Wait,
then.
wait, wait. Actually, I'm not
Okay.
done.
All
Sorry,
right.
this is a
Well,
chorus, so it's gonna keep coming up. But I said this on the last episode. I think there's something in the way that this sentence or these words are organized. The fact that you say something is so much of this thing that it is actually something else is just interesting to me. And I just feel like I don't know what that means, but I just think that the fact that it says so scarlet that it was maroon,
hmm.
I just think that there's something there of like it was so much of something that it actually became something else. The other thing that I wanted to say is that we've been talking a lot about the color of the chorus, but I had a realization as I've read this just over and over again just now. I think I always thought that this chorus was very like romantic, maybe. And now I'm like, are they fighting?
Well, I think let's keep going because things change.
I don't even think things change. Like we talk splash wine onto somebody. Like
Oh,
you
I think
splash
they're
wine onto
drunk.
my shirt.
Okay, well, let's okay. The reading that I have at this point in time, the burgundy in my t-shirt when you splashed your wine into me. They're dancing, no shoes, they're drunk, haha, we splashed the wine. The blood rushed into my cheeks could be blushing.
Anger.
No, okay, where I'm going right now, I see like based on where we're at right now, I chose you. We are happy, we are falling. I see you every day now. It's we're drunk and happy and we spilled wine. The blood of blush runs into my cheeks. The mark on your collarbone is positive, a hickey. It is some like affection and love. The rust that grew between telephones, maybe
Oh, I see
there
what
was
you're saying.
distance and we had to call each other. The lips I used to call home because I was literally physically calling you on the
Yeah.
telephone.
I think that's the point, is that it could be both.
Yeah.
And
It
then
can
let's
be
keep
both.
and that's what I'm saying, like, let's keep
Yeah,
going on the
yeah,
song
yeah,
because
yeah.
it changes.
Right, right,
Like,
right.
this
Just like
next
the color
verse
red can be
just like
both.
the color red changes, now
Right.
this next verse, all of a sudden, when the silence came, we were shaking, blind, and hazy. That is a very different
Colorblind?
maybe, maybe,
I'm
but
fully like committed to
Hazy,
this
I mean,
theory.
the song comes after Lavender Haze.
Yeah, that's interesting.
how the hell did we lose sight of us again?
You
Well, in
know,
the haze,
I have
dummy.
never thought about this before in this song, and this is truly one of my favorite songs. Everything in the chorus is so visual, and then we go into all of these things where we lose the ability to see. We're blind. Things are hazy.
Ooh,
We
we lost
lost
track.
Yeah.
sight of us, so we can
We
no
lost
longer
track of
see.
time. How
Yeah.
did we end up on the floor? We have no
Yeah.
idea.
But now
Like,
we can't even see things
yeah,
anymore.
at sobbing with your head in your hands.
Yeah, you standing hollow-eyed in the hallway.
Wait,
Like
you
it's.
missed the you wait.
I know. I'm
Ain't
just
that
talking
the
about the
yeah.
visual things. Yes, yes, yes.
But we have this is a very different experience from
Yeah.
you, like you laughing with like you were my closest
Feet in your
friend.
lap to head in
There's
your
no
hands.
laughing there.
Yeah.
This is silence. We're
Ooh.
shaking, blind,
But
and hazy.
guys, the lyrics mimic it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
immediately.
I want
We
you to
just
say
went from
we need.
laughing with feet in your lap to sobbing with head in your hands. It's the same structure.
Oof. So when the morning came versus when the
Yeah.
silence came.
And
Yeah.
we lost track of time, mimicking. Silence came.
Wait, oh my god. Okay.
We're shaking, blind, and hazy. I just got chills.
This is awesome.
So let's do this.
song.
Let's read the line from the first line from the first verse and
Yeah.
the first line from the second verse. So
This is a
when the
full deep dive.
it is. When the morning came, we were cleaning incense off your vinyl shelf.
When the silence came, we were shaking, blind, and hazy.
'Cause we lost track of time again.
How the hell did we lose sight of us again?
Laughing with my feet in your lap.
Sobbing with your head in your hands.
Like you were my closest friends.
Ain't that the way shit always ends?
Also, I feel like I should snap. That was a really good.
That was
poetic
totally impromptu too. That was like beautiful.
Woo.
And then it keeps going though. How do we end up on the floor anyway?
yes.
You were standing hollow-eyed in the hallway.
How do we end up on the floor anyway, you say?
You were standing hollowed-eyed in the hallway.
Your roommate's cheap-ass screwtop rosé, that's how.
Carnations you had thought were roses, that's us.
I see you every day now.
I feel you no matter what, the rubies that I gave up.
Oh, and I chose you.
And I lost you, the one I was dancing
And
with.
then it goes the same. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
But and then again, we'll get into it. But then again, the second one looked up at the sky and it was maroon.
It does say maroon.
There's no implication.
It is. The
was
sky was maroon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Brilliant.
The real fucking legacy.
Yes.
So now, literally line by line parallel, but like the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, red, the color red, we talked about the dichotomy and how you can be passionate and anger.
I really like in reading this chorus again, I understand everything that you're saying about them being young and drunk and in love
Right.
because that's always how I heard this song.
Yeah.
But
And then it shifts.
when I'm actually reading the words, they are ambiguous enough that it could also be a fight. The burgundy on my t-shirt.
And I think
when
it
you
does.
splashed your wine onto me as if like you throw wine on someone.
Agreed. And I think the first time we hear the chorus, it is in love and young and blushing.
Yeah, and the second
And
one could be a
because of the
fight.
way this verse changes, the second time it's the same exact words and it's negative. And it's a
Yeah.
fight.
Blood rush to my cheeks could be anger. So
Anger.
scarlet was
Yeah.
The
maroon.
burgundy when you t-shirt when you splash your wine into
The
me could
mark.
be, did you throw wine at this person?
But yeah, like it could be like cheating accusations. Mark
Yeah, the
on my
rust that grew
collarbone, the
between
rust-
telephones could be like we don't
Because you aren't
we're not
using
using
them
the
anymore.
lips I used to call home, not I used them to call home, but I used to call these lips
Yeah.
home. Past tense.
Yeah.
So like let's go back to the verse if we can, the second verse, just to see. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've got the essence of it, that it is effectively the opposite. They've fallen out of love. The first verse was falling into love. This is falling out of love. There's silence. We lost sight of us again. So this doesn't sound like the first time. This is not the first time this has happened. This is clearly a pattern.
I always had a question too, and it may not have a direct answer. I always wondered with the line, ain't that the way shit always ends? If that was commentary on the current relationship, and it could be both, or if this was just the experience of
general.
someone who's like, yeah, like love never
yeah.
lasts. This is
Well,
always what
what if-
happens.
It's the shades of red, all of the shades of wrong. We've seen the story before from her.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
felt red. And ain't that the way shit always ends when somebody maybe is red or when a relationship is red?
Yeah. I think it could be both. I don't think it needs to be. I think it applies to this relationship in particular because we lost sight of us again, but I think it's also a commentary in general that this is the way shit always ends. You standing hollow-eyed in the hallway and carnations you had thought were roses. That's us.
Yes, flower people, because it's not me, but you two tend to do more flower stuff.
Shit, I didn't look up what carnations are.
Oh, carnations are the little $2 ones that you get in high school.
Oh, I know
for
that, but like, what is the
skincare.
What do they
meaning?
mean?
Those are
Because I know rose. I'm in the context of this. I'm assuming roses are like the romance, the love, that stuff.
What do carnations symbolize? Devotion, love, fascination. They're the perfect swap if you fancy a change from that bouquet of roses for your partners.
Are they just cheaper?
Yeah, they're
they're
just
I think they're
cheaper.
cheaper.
It's God. They were known as the flower of God, the Greek name for carnation.
Okay, they come in the colors white, pink, red, orange, yellow, burgundy, and green.
But I think that's a real comment. Carnations you had thought were roses. That's
Yeah.
us. Something that like
Yeah.
you thought we were special and
Like extravagant, luxurious,
extravagant and luxurious, but we're not.
timeless.
We're
and
ordinary.
and cheaper.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But I feel you no matter what.
Again, present tense.
The rubies that I gave up. Well, again, like this is where it reminds me so much of Red. Forget the color commentary, but you are in Red, you're looking back on what it was like to love someone and like remembering him, feeling him. This is again seeing like I feel you no matter what. Like all of these experiences that we just had, good, bad, and ugly, I still feel it.
I want to acknowledge that the other definition or the other interpretation of colors that I mentioned in the last episode, where scarlet and rubies also kind of have literary tie-ins. I can't help but think rubies represents a way to go home when you think of ruby slippers, and she has a lot of Wizard of Oz
I
references
love that.
in her works.
The
also.
lips I used to call home,
Yeah.
past tense. I gave up home. I gave
I
my
gave
way
up
to go.
home.
Gave up my way to go
Yeah,
home.
I
Yeah.
think about the rubies as I gave up, as that was your way out. That was your way home or the way back, and I gave it up. And she's dancing no shoes because, hello, why'd you give up your rubies? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, this is interesting to me too, because we've talked a lot about how active this is. I chose you,
Yeah.
and then we have the rubies I gave up, but then we immediately go into
I
a passive.
lost.
I lost
Yeah.
you. And I think both could happen in a sense of I chose to give up this relationship because somewhere along the way I lost you, who you are, what we were together. Like that, I lost that, and so I chose to walk away from it. It could be both, maybe. I'm not sold on that.
And then we go into the chorus, and this is where for me the chorus changes. And I think it's really interesting because when I was listening to this song again in preparation for this episode, I was like, is this a positive song? Is this a negative song? And now I'm like, I'm very clearly seeing it's both. It's both sides.
Yeah.
It's all of
The
the
answer
shit.
is
The answer is
yes.
yes to all of the above. Because now, as we said before, like the context changes the meaning. The burgundy on my T-shirt when you splashed your wine into me, maybe they threw, maybe it was like an fu. How the
Yeah.
blood rushed into my cheeks with anger. So scarlet, it was maroon. The mark you saw on my collarbone, that could be some fisticuffs, some fight. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm starting to think of So Scarlet as almost synonymous with So Scandalous. Like, what if it was something really controversial or
Maybe the
debate or like
mark on the collarbone was somebody else gave you a hickey.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that
Yeah.
for the second one.
or like the relationship like somehow was so like out there. There's something so controversial about it that it was maroon. Like,
Because maroon is kind of, it's not.
okay, maroon is a deep red. So I was also
Yeah.
thinking of this.
It's dark.
The idea though that has a different song where she's loving you as red, and she has very clearly articulated what it means to love somebody who is red. And then this is like, it's red and it's all the different shades of red, but it's specifically maroon, which is like a deeper version of red.
Well, if we also want to get a little visceral with it too, it's also like if I cut myself right now, that blood will look more scarlet. If the blood dries, it's going to look more maroon. So it's a wound that has been healing over time, but it's darker in retrospect. Like I don't think.
Did we talk about the maroon symbolism? Sophistication, wisdom, passion?
Red and colors can just be whatever
Pretty
you want
much.
them to be. Which again, a great metaphor for love.
Right.
Love can be one of the most beautiful
And-
things, and people destroy
Right.
themselves for
Maroon,
love
I
every
do
day
feel
too.
like is more close to love. Like if you look at all of the different shades, like the deep red of roses, the more richer, deep more mature color feels like a more everlasting love. Like that's
I
more
think it
what I
just
was.
depends what kind of love, and I think this is where
Yeah,
it's like so
that's true.
subjective. Where like you guys are married and like
Yeah.
have a very different relationship to love than I do.
That's true.
See, but like this song to me, I don't ever listen to it and think of a current relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never had a relationship that has felt as tumultuous as this because I got lucky. But like I would think of like past relationships and how you think of them differently later on, and maybe they were passionate but toxic.
But I'm almost wondering if she's just like, this relationship was red. I just didn't recognize it because it was maroon. Like it was a deeper version of that. Maybe it was a more mature version of that. And so I didn't recognize it. But at the end of the day, it was still red, right? Like there's all these shades of red. Like I'm trying to figure out like what does maroon mean in this context? And I think to me it's like, what if it's just the same but not immediately recognized because we're older?
Should we do the bridge and then maybe that's what gets into the purpose?
Sure.
So the bridge, and I wake with your memory over me. That's a real
Present tense.
fucking legacy. And I wake with your memory over me. That's a real fucking legacy to leave.
The other person is gone.
Gone. So like this is that's why
clear.
Jen, you don't
Like-
think about this in the context of a current relationship because the
Like-
bridge is
Yeah.
like it's over.
That's fair. It's good that I don't
But
think of it.
are they like dead and gone?
Yes, Monty brought up death. I should have a bingo card for when we record.
I mean, a legacy is really something that you leave once you're dead. And then I wake with your memory over me. A memory also. I mean, it could just be
They
somebody
could be
leaving.
you dead
but
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say dead to her.
Okay, the line that has the most, like you could interpret it in many ways, that's a real fucking legacy to leave. Is it that you are leaving a legacy or the legacy is to leave? And
Or is a legacy a fucking? Technically possible to be interpreted that way. I'm throwing out the options. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just
I really
saying
wish
if
I was
we
one of
wanna
your
do all the
students.
modifiers.
I wish I was one of your students. Your students must have had so much fun.
I want to draw a diagram with like, is this the subject? Is
Three
this the
different
subject?
Yeah, grabber with Taylor
I'm not
Swift.
saying it's what I think it is. I am just saying that's the other option. But yeah, I mean, the person's gone one way or another. That's for sure.
I lost you. They're gone. All you have
To
left is the
leave.
memory and the legacy,
And then it repeats the chorus.
which again is much more melancholy this time. I feel like each time we hear the chorus, we have different information that gives you context for what the chorus feels or says in that moment. It's the same words, it's the same colors, but with a very different meaning.
And this last one is we're going to talk about music. So sorry. The last one is when it almost like goes
Drops out.
deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does change into creating that sense of like melancholy, like moving away kind of. Because in my version of the lyrics, so scarlet, it was maroon, the words it was maroon is in parentheses because it's kind of like
Figured it out.
fading out, or it's done a little bit differently in the final.
I figured out my
sing through
interpretation.
So do you have your purpose? Are we ready?
Yeah, I can lead into it. I think we've been playing with time in the past and the present the whole time. And I think the thing that I was stuck on this whole entire time was, how can something be so scarlet that it's actually maroon? And I think the reason is because there's two speakers. There's speaker past and speaker future. And I think it was maroon is speaker future the whole time in the whole song. It's future speaker always saying it was maroon, because the realization happens much later that it was maroon. It was maroon all along, but in the moment we did not know it was maroon. And all of the other colors are speaker past. It's in like something like looked up at the sky and it was whatever it was at that time, burgundy on the t-shirt when the splash of wine, the blood rushed the t-shirt. It was so scarlet. It was bright in that moment. And there were all these shades of red. And looking back at it, it was all maroon. It's always been maroon. It was always maroon. Used to be a good relationship, ended up a bad relationship. She does this all the freaking time with red relationships. And this one was just a different flavor of that relationship. And so it was maroon.
It was cherry instead of watermelon. It's both red, different flavors.
Watermelon sugar.
That's true.
Now people are going to think that that's the relationship we're talking about, but we don't do rumors, ladies and gentlemen.
What if that
One
is
other
the
thing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Stop it, Monty, no.
That's a different podcast, Monty.
I'm fine.
The other, I have my purpose too, but one other thing that I wanted to point out, because I said this last episode about the difference between golden and red, and you left your mark on me like a golden tattoo. Again, the mark you saw on my collarbone, again, it's leaving a mark on your body. And hickey, maybe yes, maybe not a good thing, but I just wanted to bring that up again of like, she's revisited this multiple times, and a red mark on your collarbone is not straightforward. And it's like we have this idea of people leaving marks on your body, in her overall body of work. So I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was interesting. But I don't think my interpretation is that different than yours, Monty. But one thing, just having thought about the song Red in preparation for last week's episode and the duality of red, and then sing it again, and what we did with the verses and the side by side, I was really struck with the idea that it's pretty common that the reason you fall in love with someone is the reason why you fall out of love with that person. That's a pretty common story of you love someone for how they passionately argue things, and then 20 years later you're like, can you just not fight for once in your life? And the way that Red has both things, the song is mirroring everything. I interpret it as that's kind of what happened. That it's like, hey, here's how we fell in love, and this is what it looked like. And then nothing has changed, but for those exact same reasons, now it's darker. And I think that's where the color for me comes in. When we fell in love, it was scarlet, it was bright, it was vibrant. And then when we fell out of love, it was maroon, it was darker, it was not a great thing. It was not as full of life. It was, more muted.
Ooh,
and there's
muted.
the
I was gonna ask
past and future.
My question was gonna be, what do you think that means? Like, if it is now maroon? Because I guess the one thing that I didn't say is like, I actually think it was still a deep love. I think the reflection is like, you left, and it was still a very deep,
passionate
love. Like, it wasn't a disaster. It was, and I think maybe the speaker still loves this person.
Yeah, and I interpret that too, because that's the part that to me I got really stuck on, was that I feel you no matter what.
Yeah.
I wake with your memory over me. That the present tense of that, and that I think it is in retrospect a darker love than it felt at the time. That now, I mean, like, I can think about this with like my high school boyfriend. It wasn't dark and like super toxic, but like in retrospect, like, oh, now that I'm in my
hindsight's
30s,
2020.
like, okay, teenagers are idiots, which is fine. You learn from that.
But would you describe that as maroon?
I
feel like maroon is kind of a pleasing color. Like, this is subjective, so we're definitely getting into
like, what does it mean to you? Exactly.
Yeah. I like the color maroon.
Right. Like,
personally, but I don't know, it kind of makes me think of like, what people will talk about. This is not a life experience I had, but of visiting a place that they went to when they were a kid. Like, oh, I went to Disney World and this was my favorite ride, and I go back 30 years later and it didn't live up. And that's what it makes me feel like too. We were talking about how it's different things. I think it is darker, it's more mature. It doesn't mean it's good, it doesn't mean it's bad, but that the revisiting this as an adult,
you see it differently.
Oh, this feels totally different than it did when I was in the moment. But in the present tense, I can acknowledge that whatever that experience was fundamentally helped shape me. It is a core part of me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you with until like I'm taking away, maybe because of my own personal interpretation, as more of a positive at the end, because I think that if something was faded, I could have seen like a brick red or a different whatever. But I think the fact that it's this kind of soft and deep color, it's very rich. Like, you have roses and carnations that are also maroon. Like, I'm thinking that she's like angry at this person that they lost sight or whatever, that the person left, and there was something that caused it to fall apart. But it's in a kind of somber, sad way, and it's still a very deep love, is my...
I think for me, the purpose of this song is a more mature evolution of red, where red, we saw the complexities and the dichotomy of the color red and what that means in love, that it can be both good and bad and passionate and difficult. And here we just have like a much more mature and nuanced version of that. And I go back to the idea that maroon symbolizes wisdom and sophistication, and this is a song that shows a relationship through someone's like more adult perspective. And I think that what I particularly love about this song that I didn't realize until deep diving is just how it flips and how it paints the falling in love and how these colors mean something positive, and then the falling out of love and how these same colors and the same exact experiences mean something very different and have a very different connotation. And I loved what you were saying, Jen, about like reflecting back on past relationships, that like the reason you fall into love with someone can be the reason you fall out of love. Hindsight is 2020 when you look back on a specific situation or a specific relationship. Or like I think about my ex-boyfriend in that situation, and like there are things that I thought in the moment were special, or like, or maybe I didn't think that much of. It was just like an ordinary moment, like maybe it was like losing track of time, laughing with your feet in your lap. And then only in hindsight do I see, wait a second, there was something much more under the surface that I didn't notice then, that what he said or the nuance of a tone of voice, or it was and only in hindsight am I able to say like, oh wait a second, that was a red flag, that was a sign, that was something that I'm
Red
a red
flag.
flag, right? That was something I missed. And so I love that in the chorus, how it's these same situations but you're seeing it very differently.
Yeah.
Through that maturity, through that hindsight, or just through, things changed in the relationship, and
Yeah.
something that somebody does now when they've wronged you can be interpreted and you feel it very differently than when you were first falling in love with them. And I think that the purpose of the song is just to represent that complexity of relationships, of love, and how the same love can change both within one relationship and with hindsight looking back on that relationship.
I also like the potential of the fact that the same bright versions of the red, they can mean different things in the two different situations. But the idea that looking back on it, you can realize it was same all along. Like maybe it was maroon the whole time.
The whole time. The whole time. And you
so
just
now
didn't see it.
You have another layer, which is like same thing twice, but then it was actually the same, even though in that moment it was different. And it's like two different ways of saying the same thing was different, but also the same.
Well, it's kind of like I noticed a comma in the middle of the phrase. I go back to each shoots and leaves, right? Like you put a comma in the different place, it totally changes the meaning.
Yeah.
Did you intend this?
Real fucking legacy.
It's a real fucking legacy.
Well, and even all this reminds me too. It just is just a funny story. I remember in our premarital counseling, our counselor was like, "What are the main fights you guys have?" And we are like, "Oh, here's a couple of things." And he's like, "Great. Are you ready to have those same fights for the rest of your life?" And we were like, "What?" And he was like,
"There you go."
He's like, "They'll sort of change, but you will probably have basically these same fights forever, over and
was he
over
right?
Again. And we were like, oh, for sure he was right. Literally recently something happened and I was like, do you want to have our annual fight about this? Like now, like we have like scheduled fights before. We're like, we know this isn't going to go well. Let's get some good food we love and we'll
hash it out
through it like we do every year. Yeah.
That's the sign of a healthy relationship. I love it. You're like, let's just get this over with.
Yeah, I think I stressed my mom out once. She texted me a question. I was like, oh, actually, Chris and I need to fight about that first, and then I'll get you answered. She was like, what? I was like, it's fine.
It's healthy. It's healthy.
Do you guys know if the word being marooned has anything to do with the color maroon?
Ooh.
Interesting.
Sounds like something we should be Googling, and probably should have
Googled
about it before we did this episode.
We're already done with the purpose, so I'm not trying to do 10 more purposes, but I just thought.
But I did think of that, like the idea she's being left alone, she's being marooned. Yeah, possibly. I think that's a great connection.
Actually, I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but it apparently,
Oh, you know what? I know the answer to this because I studied this. It actually, no, there were people called maroons who were basically like this is a pirating reference. It's not the color.
Interesting.
It could still. We talk about what a word like literally means, and what you can infer from it, and and I mean like I don't think it's like maybe the most direct thing, but there's definitely
something there.
The second part too, like we were blind.
A correlation, maybe.
Yeah, like connotation and denotation. Those were the words I was looking for. Of feeling alone, and I lost you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the separation kind of thing.
Real fucking legacy to leave. I love that I at some point was like said the F, like literally said F word. But this song says fucking legacy. This is an explicit episode anyway, so I didn't need to bleep myself.
X-rated. Okay.
I love that I never bleep myself, and then this was the one time I
what
did.
a great song, guys. So many layers
This
to
is
this.
I
Amazing.
love this.
I feel like it's hard to even end
Yeah.
the deep dive because I just want to keep going and going and going.
Well,
but super
that's
fun.
what the Substack's for. Subscribe
Yeah,
to our
this was
Substack.
always one of my favorite. This was always one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, same.
The connections we have made is like, oh,
Now I know
that's
why.
why I can listen to
Yeah.
the song on like constant. I can hyperfixate on the song in every listen. I'm like, oh yes.
Should I do a Weasley interpretation in the Substack?
Yes, I
Yes,
think
100%.
that there's no question about that.
It's a song about being a Gryffindor.
And
Well, it
shades
is.
of
We
red.
had maroon and gold in the last
Yeah.
episode.
All the shade of redheads. We have
Alright.
brick,
Shade of-
burgundy, scarlet.
On that note, thanks for listening to this episode of AP Taylor Swift / Harry Potter. Tune in next time as we decide what other Taylor Swift song may or may not actually be about Harry Potter. That's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Be sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on your social channel of choice at AP Taylor Swift to stay up to date. And join us next time as we overanalyze and deep dive into the next Taylor Swift song on AP Taylor Swift.